Yo, what up? What up? It's your boy H2O. Welcome back to another episode of the New Balance podcast. That's right. It's your potential conditioner. And that's right. I'm squatted up. Don't start none, won't be none. Oh, man, I'm so excited that you have chosen to listen to and watch this podcast, man. I tell you, the last month and a half, man, it has been such a roller coaster ride talking about our mental health, my mind playing tricks on me, factors affecting our mental health. And look, I really believe, let me let you guys in on the secret. I really know and believe it's not over. I talked to the team and they're still wanting to go. So sometime this year, we'll be back with that mental health piece, but with that mental health piece. But for now, we're transitioning. We're getting ready to start a whole new series this month, and I'm really, really excited about it. But before I dive in with all the goodies, man, I just kind of want to introduce my crew. I'm gonna start directly to my left, top left. Show some love to our guest, Victoria Dominique. What up, Victoria? All
Hello,
right.
everyone. Hello.
Yeah. So good to have you riding with us, sis. And then directly below her, we want to shout out my homie, my good friend, my kinfolk. Give it up for Mr. Teron Gidry. What's up, T?
How you guys
Good.
doing?
Good. So glad to have you, T. Man,
Thank
do
you.
you? Well, let me say this too. Well, that's not true because one of the mental health podcasts I had some more testosterone on, so it's just good to have some more testosterone on the screen. So
Abs-
Mm,
always good, right? And then
Absolutely.
last but definitely not least, right underneath me is my sis, Miss Rachel Mackey. She is no stranger to the New Balance podcast. She's also the education ambassador, our educational coach with the Press and Community Initiative, and we're so glad to have her on. What up, Rachel?
Yeah, hello everyone. Glad to be back.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I got my squad, and we have a a situation. When you watch, I forget which movie it is. I think it's Apollo. Is it in Apollo 13 when it says Houston, we have a
Yeah.
problem?
Yeah.
Yeah. But well, not only in Houston do we have a problem, but across this nation. And today we wanna launch a new series, and we're calling this series Education from the Inside Out. And today, man, I have on some educators from all walks of life, various experiences. We decided that we were going to come together and we want to have this conversation around education, education from the school to the home, also education from the home to the school. We want to have this conversation, and we thought it would be very um, enlightening to just stop. Sometimes you just have to stop, look at what it is, and then we have to just discuss it to find out how can we move forward. And so let me be more specific. um, I think it's safe to say, and this is no disrespect, no shout to anyone. I'm telling you, I got the education professionals on, but it's safe to say education as a whole, it's at an all-time low. When you look at the things that have been happening, the effects of those things, and then most importantly, teachers teach because of students. So um, it's not necessarily a bad thing to get a report card with all D's on it. The problem is if you go through the whole year and the D's never come up, that's when it becomes a
Yeah.
problem. So let's just say um, for an example, this report card, let's say it's full of D's. I have teachers on, I have assistant principals on, I have coaches on. We want to talk about how we can raise these grades so we can get the things that we need, right? Both from the education side of things and then for our families and for our communities. And I made that opening statement saying, education is at an all time low because we see the fallout of it, right? You don't have to look very far if you watch the news, if you're talking to your coworkers, family members. No, let me stop. If you just talk to your kids, right? If you just watch what your kids are experiencing, their friends are experiencing, the temperature on the campuses, in our homes, in our communities are at an all-time high. So today, we put our gear on. We're not scared of the fire. We're not alarmed by the fire. Matter of fact, we know how to put the fires out. So that's why I have this squad on. And today we're just going to dive in. So I guess a good place to start is one of the things that's really making headlines everywhere is the alarming rate of teachers just walking away, just throwing up their hands. It's just like, hey,
Yeah.
enough is enough, right? And I think let's start there because I want to say, well, let me wait a minute before you answer. Let me just first and say this. I want to first applaud the teachers that are on, and I just want to give you a hand clap as a
That's
parent,
good.
right? As a parent, thank God, man. My the last of the Mohicans, she's graduating this year, and so we'll be done with school and all of those things. And but I know what it's like um, to have kids in school, and there'll be challenges. So I want to first say to every teacher, coach, administrator, principal, the police officers, the cafeteria,
Mhm.
uh, services, the men and women who clean the schools. Oh my God! Please let's shout out the bus drivers, everybody who does anything to make our schools work and to help our kids. I just want to give you big kudos, and especially over these last 2.5 years, how you've had to serve and work and still keep the focus of keeping the kids first. I just want to say thank you. What you do is so appreciated, and I want to say that from here. So today, there are no shots or anything like that, but we got to talk about what is it, what's happening, and so I dare not try to address that from a parental um, platform. I want to hear from the teachers, and so whoever wants to go first. Well, you know what? I can throw it. I'm gonna throw an alley oop. I'm gonna throw the alley oop to Tehran since we got some testosterone on. So I'm gonna throw it to T. And from your perspective, from your campus, however you want to address it, let's talk about teachers, man, that are just saying, "Hey, I I went to school for this. I want to do this for the rest of my life," but find themselves walking away and calling it quits.
Okay. And so, hello everyone again. And so there's a lot to talk about, obviously, but I'm gonna give you guys a few points on what I see. Like I said, I've been in education close to 10 years now, and this was an issue even before COVID happening. And
Okay.
after COVID happened and the pandemic, and the children had to stay home and develop so many not so good habits, um, it's been even harder the last few years in education. And the rate of teachers leaving the profession is even higher than what it was before. But it's been an issue. And so the normal teacher would tell you that the issue is level of support, um, level of support from administration, level of support from the home, the parenting, just to um, basically help the kids' behavior. A lot of teachers just want to teach their curriculum, whether it's math, science, English, social studies, and they don't know how to deal with the everyday kid and all the things that comes with it. Showing up on time. How do you approach a kid who doesn't have a father figure, and how do you try to be stern with him or her, and without them causing a scene and then getting everybody else in a ruckus? And so, and teachers just need to learn how to have that level of support, and they don't feel like they have that in administration. They don't feel like they have that at home. It's always, I saw a picture. This is what I'll say. I saw a picture it said 1960s, and it had a kid, a parent, and a teacher. And the kid got in trouble, and in the 1960s, the parent said, "What did you do to the teacher?" And they were trying to correct the kid. And nowadays, you see more so when the kid gets in trouble, the parent is trying to correct the teacher instead of the kid. And just the level of support is an issue. And then with COVID happening now, you just see the level of students who don't want to pay attention or listen to authority, And it's just a hard, tedious thing to try to get those bad habits out. So I'll just end right there for now.
Thank you. That's a great question. Before I have commentary, I want to hear from Rachel and Victoria as well.
I agree with Teron, about the level of support of teachers, especially new teachers feeling like they're not supported. I also want to make comment about the last thing about kids not being able to focus. I don't think it's that they're not really wanting to cooperate, especially like I don't know if we're all high school, but if you look at the freshmen this year, they were out of school for the last basically 2 years, year and a half at home. So they didn't have the structure. They can get online when they wanted to. I'm in HISD, so it's a lot bigger district. And the way we did online school then was, you meet for 30 minutes and then you have the rest of the day to work on your assignments. And then you have the week to get everything turned in. Nothing was considered late. So that's one of the things we're seeing now is the discipline. They're not used to being in class. We have 90-minute classes. So that's had a big effect too on discipline in the class and teachers, having to handle students. Another big complaint I know is the salary. It's a big issue right now in HISD. We got a new superintendent, so a lot of things are changing. He said that teachers are going to get, 6% increase. And so the big thing on Twitter was all the parents like, what are we going to get? What support are we going to get? The school is not going to run with just teachers. So salary is a big thing. A lot of teachers they can't just live off a basic salary. It's like most of us, we coach because a lot of times it's not just because we want to. A lot of times we need that extra stipend just to meet daily needs. So I think salary is a big thing too that's turning, especially a lot of the younger people, turning them away because they can go do something else and make a lot more money. And it's not a passion for them. Like for us, I know for me, 20 years is a passion. It's something I was called to do. And a lot of them think they can just go into it. I have the summers off. I can do this. I have holidays off. And so they don't really see, like you said, Teron said earlier, they just want to come and teach their subject and go home. But it's much more than that. You have to be active in the kids. If they're involved in sports and activities and band, you have to be there and show them that you support. You have to build those relationships with students. It's just not teaching this subject. So that's it.
Just throwing, hop in on that, piggyback off of what you guys said. We're in a time where, for a long time, it was like focusing on the academics. And I think COVID kind of shone the light on the fact that we have to educate the whole child, not just the academics. It kind of showed the flaws, the disconnect between parents and home, because you saw it on TikTok, you saw it on Facebook. I laughed at them all where parents are like, "Ooh, teachers, oh, thank you, God, we will never," like all of that. And it was so flattering, but it also showed the disconnect between home and school. And that's been going on for a while. You gave the example about in the 1960s, how it was different versus now. We have to, educating 21st century learners who are learning jobs that don't even exist yet, right? We are educating them to be prepared for that. But there's some other things going on too: character, social, emotional, all those things where they used to say it takes a village. Now it's like it takes a village, but I don't want my child getting in trouble, or you can't talk to my child that way. So I think teachers are caught in the crosshairs of some political situations, and our whole country has been going through that back and forth. And I don't think there's any area where whether it's education, finance, or any, social justice that hasn't been touched by the recent going ons in the world. So teachers are leaving because they want something different, but then also that passion piece that we talked about, it has to be a passion, 20 plus years, 12 decades, you know, it's a service, you know, but when you're serving, every now and then you need to be boosted up, right? And, you know, we have our teacher appreciation weeks and all that, but at some point, a Starbucks gift card isn't enough to for some teachers to stay. And so we're seeing kind of the effects of COVID that have kind of just pushed teachers to that edge.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. So three things that I want to kind of pin on the wall, and I want to kind of I wanted to open them and let's really look at them. I want to start with one of the things Coach Guidry said. He went back to an era where there was a system in place by which many families, or I would almost venture to say majority of families function from, right? There was a support um, in line with the teacher from a parental. So that would be from the home to the school, right? So what took place on the school, there was a time where the home supported and made sure what was going on in the school and what was needed for the kid was going to be in line, and I was going to enforce it, right? Right. So that's so critical. So that's one thing. Another thing I want to put on the board, and I think it's so very important to talk about. Rachel says something which is one of my favorite words. She said, there's a lack of passion. Teron alluded to it, but Rachel endeavored. He said, just want to come in. I want to just teach math and, go home. But we know, I don't care what you do, whatever it is, if you don't have a passion for it, I'm telling you, you start off with the problem. Because as soon as problems enter and you're not passionate about it, well, things are going to come unglued, things that you barely have tied together, they're going to come untied. And so it seeps problems, right? So we want to talk about passion, we want to talk about system. And then something Ms. Veronica said that really touches me because I was that kid. We have to teach the whole kid, all of the kid, not just academics. And so we know we live in a time where, like never before, kids are dealing with all sorts of types of things, right? There, there is no cookie cutter way for a whole campus of kids. It's just not. We know now more than ever, there are more kids that have to take medication, have medical attention now more than ever. So obviously, the classroom is going to be impacted. Also, there are more kids now that are affected by the trauma just from home now more than ever. When I was a kid, I shared people watching, they know my story. Grew up in a home, and my parents ended up getting a divorce. I was 9 years old, right? That was traumatic. We left one day, I had one life. The very next day, I had another life, and I was at school transitioning to this new life. One day, I had a mom and a dad, brother and sister under one roof. The next day, I had my mama, my brother, and my sister in a whole nother different roof. So I'm very sensitive and I'm very passionate about kids, what they're having to learn on top of. So we have to we have to put that on the board and look at it. So Victoria used the term, we have to educate the whole kid. So that means kid may be on mentally and education wise, they borderline genius, but they also could be like you know, it's a they're always in the office type thing. Or because of some medical things, they just can't focus in class, they can't sit still. Or just because they're um, reaching out, acting out because of all the things that they're dealing with. So there are a bunch of different things that we see. So once they said education from the inside out, as parents, we're not on the inside. So I want you guys to talk to me about those three things, however you want to, in whatever order. But what could be some recommendations? Because what I want to do after you give the recommendations, I'm gonna put on the parent hat, right? And so I want to have this conversation with you based off of your information. And I'll start again with Teron, if you could go first.
Well, when you were talking, a student popped in my mind. Obviously, we're
Okay.
not going to go into depth with, particular students, can't do that. But
Sure.
from the standpoint of this, and my mind starts getting to him, and that goes to the passion because he captured my heart
Yes.
with the situation. And so to answer your question, as teachers, I always put a lot on us. And
Yes.
so we have to do a good job, just like Ms. Mackey said, in learning the students and knowing and understanding that they go through things. And you
Mhm.
were talking about your situation. And so, for example, when you have kids, and I'm thinking of one of myself, when you have kids who have a character change or and start having discipline issues, and you're wondering what's going on. We have to be able to communicate better. And the reason I say in this on my heart, because you're talking about your situation and it's like, bang. And so we had a student like that and he started having a little bit of trouble. And it turns out, you know, his father passed away. And
Mm,
I am 34
mm.
and my father, my family obviously, and
Yes.
my father passed away a few months ago, and it was hard for me to deal with that,
Yes.
and let alone a high school student going through that. And nobody ever knew. I had no idea about that until I had to dig a little deeper and find out. And so it's just one of those deals where I think we just have to do a better job communicating, learning more about the student. And once you get to that deeper root of things, you can be able to solve a lot of other issues that you're talking about. So.
Love that answer. Great answer. Miss Rachel?
Um, yes, I want to talk about the system of parental support and teaching the whole kid because I am at a high school. It's predominantly Hispanic. And
Mhm.
so with this population, I have juniors. A lot of them are working. So
Mm.
like Tehran, I'm thinking about a particular student, you know, he comes to class every day. I get him at the end of the day, all he wants to do is sleep. Um, so yeah, I have to ask, like, why are you so tired? He's like, I work. So they leave school, go to work all night, and then come back to school. So it's hard, like how do you reach out to the parents? They're working because they have to work. It's not a choice. They're working to support their family. Um, and so we have wraparound services, but a lot of times um, you refer the kids and then from there, you don't really know what happens. Um, do they provide, they provide different things like counseling, if they need food, they need doctor, appointments and things like that. But that's one of my dilemmas right now is how do you reach that 18-year-old who's a junior? They're working, they have to work, and really school, they're just there so they won't be called by the truancy officer. Parents
Right.
won't have to go to court.
That's right.
Um, so yeah, that's one of the big things too that we're facing, especially in
Yeah.
high school. And pretty much, I don't have a solution. This is just like a problem I'm putting out there. Um,
Yes.
a lot of them, they're just going to school just because they have to go to school. So I don't
Right.
know. That's just one of the things that's on my mind. It's not really a solution or to anything, but that's
Yeah.
one of the things teachers are facing as well.
Teachers are facing it, and I do want to, I want to talk through possible solutions because I believe there has to be possible solutions. And the reason why, and we're going to come right to you, Victoria. The reason I say this, I use the analogy of a report card. Okay, I got D's this 6 weeks. So I don't even know what the grading thing is. I'm just using
Mhm.
what it was for me. So this 6 weeks I got D's, right? So I know for me, my mom is, I already know what the conversation is going to be. And even though there's going to be some punishment because I'm a better student than the D's, at the same time, she's going to give me some solutions to get the D's up to B's or whatever the best grade I can make. So my point in you saying that I appreciate you as a teacher, like you have to let it bleed from the heart. Like you want to, I'm here as an educator. I want to help you get to your dream. I want to help you get to the next level. Now let's talk. We are all working parents, right? So now you have put the responsibility of parent on a
Yes.
adolescent.
Yes.
Now, I get what it's like because in my family, I was considering working, but my mom was like, "No, you're not. You're not working. It ain't your responsibility. I'm gonna work. We're gonna figure it out. We're gonna do X, Y, Z." But we understand we're in a time now where that's really not the case, right?
Yeah.
So, long term, what can we do, or what can be a solution? I'm gonna throw this out, but we'll come back to it. One of the things we have to do is there has to be another level of engagement, in my humble opinion, from the school to the home. So this is could be the possibility because I know you can get into a bunch of different things here. So if I'm a part of this school campus, right, and I'm one of the decision makers, so I have a teacher who comes to me and says, "We have a problem. I know now why there's an attendance problem because over half of my students, they work jobs. They work having to work all night and they come to school, they want to sleep." Okay, so I've identified the problem. Now, as a person of influence, a person who can make things happen, my mindset says, okay, now there needs to be a heavy dose of community engagement with these families. So, in other words, I want to reach out to see what resources are in our community. Because, see, like you said, the school is just not there to teach your kid English and then send them home every day. That's not the purpose of the school. I promise you, it's not. When you go back and you talk about Tehran, when he talked about a era from the 60s, when you looked at the school, it was a community-wide effort. Everything tied into the school. What do I mean? Who, when you went to church, your school teacher went to your church, your barber went to your church, Mr. Johnny who cut grass went to your church, Mr. Erickson that was the electrician went to your church. In other words, there are all of these different relationships that tie through our church, through our school. What am I talking about? That maybe is a possibility. There are some opportunities that we can lend to homes to help parents. Maybe they need a better job that pays more, right? Or maybe they need to go get a skill set. There are some classes you can. In other words, we should be a place where these kids, not only are we educating them, they can also get some help to make their lives better. Or maybe we just like a farm. They just come here for 4 years, we pass them along, get ready for the next 4. I'm just saying that it has to be some, because what happens is you're going to go through a cycle of losing teachers. Because after a while, if Miss Rachel continues to teach because she loves these kids so much, she's going to feel helpless. Like, I ain't teaching. I'm not teaching them. Matter of fact, I don't even want to teach him English. I'm concerned about him being so sleepy, he going to get in a car accident. I'm concerned about him feeling like he don't make enough money. He going to have to start selling dope or whatever. Like, as a person, it's like, it's a human thing. Okay, calm down, Harry. Calm down. Calm down. I'm just saying. My point is, I do want to talk some solutions. So I can't do that if you guys don't share. So thank you for sharing that, Rachel. Go ahead, Miss Victoria.
One thing that kind of keeping some notes as we go on. One solution is switching from being reactive to being responsive in the community. So we have Jimmy, who's a student, and he has to work, and so he's not attending classes. So how are we going to respond, right? So truly, asking the question why. Sometimes, a teacher has papers to grade and all these other things, phone calls, emails, you name it, attendance, just all the things that go on in the day. But yet and still, teachers, the ones with that passion, have this sense of intuition where they know their students and they're like, I can't put my finger on it, but something's not right. Teachers are on the front line. And, you know, just like when you're fighting a war, your soldiers are on the front line, but you have generals, you have sergeants, you have, and it goes up and up. And then, you know, it takes everyone involved to make it. I think sometimes we look at the issue in isolation, like the roles in isolation. What is the teacher going to do? What is the school going to do? What is the parent going to do? What is the community going to do? When it's really a linear type of thing where we all have to connect with each other and we all have to start talking like we're doing right now, which is great, which is why I love, you know, what you're doing with the podcast. But you have to have those crucial conversations. And sometimes they're tough conversations. There's actually a coaching book, an educational coaching book, and it's called Crucial Conversations. And it's teaching educators, leaders, teachers, parents to attack the elephant in the room. Because the truth is, a lot of the things are tough and sticky situations to talk about. And we don't want to talk, you know, that New Encanto song. I teach elementary. So, I mean, I'm in the elementary realm, K through 5. So there, don't you talk about Bruno, like don't talk about racism. Don't talk about your data and you see your sub pops. Why are all the African-American or why are all the Latino students scoring below 50% on the, you know, we're taught to look at this data, but are we using the data that we're getting to ask the right questions? It's not that they didn't meet growth. It's why are they not meeting growth? Let's talk about it. And it's okay to talk about it, but you have different hotspots depending on what district you're in, depending on what state you live in, you know, where maybe you're not allowed to talk about racism or systemic challenges or the, you know, the idea of prison or the pipeline to prison idea, all those things that it's like, ooh, we're not going to talk about that. But that's affecting the whole child. That's affecting the whole system, you know. So I think being open to having those crucial conversations where we're going to attack it head on is the first step.
Great. You and like I said, I can't make any of this up. You guys are, whenever you watch this or whoever's watching it, I want you may watch it, but I want you to go back and watch it because it's things that are happening real time. If you're listening to what they're saying, none of these teachers work on the same campus. They don't, well, Tehran and Rachel know each other and I know each other, but they don't know each other in their respective fields. Let me say it that way. So what I want to do is something all of you said, and you did it the first time, and you did it again. So I want to connect it. But before we leave this segment, is there anything else that you guys want to say to that? Because for me, trust me, it's not. None of us are angry at anybody. I think that's important to say. But you got to get to a place where you can express what you feel and how you feel about it without feeling like, well, am I putting somebody down or am I speaking ill against them? That's not this. This podcast is not that. And I wouldn't even have those type of individuals on, right? So, but we are concerned about our campuses, and we're definitely concerned about the children and the families of those children. So you guys want to say anything else as relates to the things that we just talked about? Because where we're going next is going to go deep.
I don't think there's one party to blame. I think that, you know, as other fields have progressed since the 60s, I think education is just one of those that have stayed straight lines, straight rows type thing. And we're teaching and living. It has changed so much with technology, with just, and it's beautiful change. We've had some beautiful change in our world, but along with that, how are we going to change the education? We're not still driving I don't know what the Ford Model 1, whatever that was, you know, we're driving Teslas now. So can we how do we get our education system to progress with the time? I think that's really the one of the culprits here is just moving along with all of the great things that have happened since the 1960s.
You're spot on. You're spot on. I love it. I love it. P, you want to say something? Please do. I want you. I don't want you to hold your bite your tongue. I want you to say it, man.
No,
I
I'm
want you
ready.
to
I
chase
just
it.
I'm ready. I just appreciate what you just said right there, and because that reminded me of, how we met at Spirit and Truth. And
For sure. For
as
sure.
we get, talk about religion stuff, one thing that Pastor Bamberg said to me that for whatever reason I've never forgotten is understanding that we serve a living God is what we say, right? He's not
Right.
dead. And obviously with Easter coming up, that's perfect timing. Resurrection
Absolutely.
Sunday is tomorrow, if you guys didn't know, listening.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so, but understanding this and how I can correlate to what she just said to what I'm thinking about is the devil's not the same as he was
In
2,000 years
1960.
ago,
Yes, sir.
1960, whenever, as everything progresses, you have to continue to progress. And so
Yes,
when she
sir.
was saying that, it just took me to a spiritual mindset right there. But she's absolutely right. Because if you don't, and you're still using the old weapons that you used to use 20 years ago, you're outdated, you're outmanned, you're outperformed, and you're falling behind. And so, yeah, we have to continue to push education and the things that we do as educators to the next level.
Yep. So thank you so much for setting up exactly where I want to go. I'm not saying it, I'm just repeating everything that they've said. So I've asked you those questions. You guys gave me your perspective. This is what you guys said. You gave me four C's. The first C is communicate better. Teron said it. We got to communicate better, right? Rachel said she gave three C's. She said we have to care, right? We have to have the right concern, and we need to counsel. We got to work on the counseling, right? And then Miss Victoria said we got to connect. And what T said is, if you look at education model in the 1960s, right? Um, when you look at the face of the family, obviously, right? The family was a different whole makeup. The world was a whole different makeup. But now the family model that we have today is not the family we had in 1960, meaning the communication that happened in 1960, we know it's not happening now. The care and concern that families had and showed in the 1960s, we don't see that like that in this day. And Lord knows the way the world was connected, the way neighborhoods and communities were connected, the way families were connected in the 1960s versus how they are in 2022 is totally different. So, like you said, if we want to hold on to old models and old vices, well, obviously, right? You know, and Tehran went there, he went spiritual. The scripture says there's no way for you to pour wine into old wineskins. You have to have some new wineskins, right? And so, wine is representative. When you think about this, it represents joy. We've lost the joy in our campuses, right? And that's from every level, whatever the level is, right? And so we have to find a way to bring those things back. And it is going to take some new concepts, some new ideas, some new innovations. So, what I want to do now is, in talking about those four C's, I want you guys to talk as though and not as though I am. I'm the parent now. So now you have this opportunity, right? And so as a parent, I have a kid in ninth grade. We're going to just we'll stay with high school for sake of the podcast. I have a kid in ninth grade. I have a kid in 11th grade, and I have a senior, right? Um, two girls, one boy. I mean, well, two young men, two young ladies, one young man. Okay. I'm a single dad. I work for Marathon. I'm a plant operator, right? And love my kids. I'm for education. I want them to have the best. So off of the cuff, you already know there is it's not a problem, but it's a concern of time spent with me and my kids because of what? Of my job. I work shift work. So I'm constantly working days. I'm constantly working nights. I'm constantly working days. I'm constantly working nights. You also know that there's an issue because there is no wife at home, right? So they only get this male presence of a from a parental, right? You also know that these are all of these kids are 14 and older, right? So they have access. They have access that most kids don't have access to, right? And so I'm just trying to paint a picture. This is nobody's life. This is make believe for this podcast. But I'm setting this up because now I want the teachers to talk to me as a parent, right? Because we're talking about communication, care, concern, counseling, connecting, right? One of the things that we know, um, it seems as though it's like it's the parents against the teacher or the parents against the school. We can talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, but we got to figure out some ways how we can dissolve it. And so I'm for the podcast right now, roll with me. I'm on the side of the parent. I, the school, I don't like what I see. I think it's unfair. I don't like how you treat my kids, and I just think it's too much on them. And I don't want to hear about COVID. And I did the best I could in COVID. When I send them there, you should be teaching them. They should be getting education. Sure, I know they have maybe some discipline problems, but what teenager doesn't, right? That's my mindset, right? So now, as relates to these things, let's have the dialogue. Let's talk. What can I do to first make this be? What are the steps to this being the right relationship? And anybody, I don't want to say Teron go first, but just whoever wants to go, I want you to talk about it because I think if we can model it, maybe it can help some parents maybe think differently. I'm not trying to change anybody, but I am trying to give you information that can perhaps make your life and the life of your children better. Also, from the home to the school, hey, maybe it's something you can do as a teacher that maybe I didn't think about doing that. Maybe I should try that, or maybe I should adopt this into what I'm already doing. Right? There's not a blame on either side. Like, how can we fix the problem? Because we know who's hurting. Who's hurting? It's the child that's going through, right? So anybody who wants to start, who wants to address any one of those things that I said, because I do want to walk away with some real time answers and hopefully some real time solutions.
I'll start because I
Okay, and
do
let me
actually have a student
that you're
who
dealing with.
fits this.
And now, and in unfairness, I want to do this too because we a lot of times we don't get to have a coach on. So I want to take advantage of having Teron on. My son that's playing too. Teron coaches him, and I done sent Teron some nasty emails because my son ain't getting to play the way I think he is. He was in little league. He was a dog, and you're not using him. And I'll be calling your name out in the stands, but you'll never look at me, Coach Teron. So we need to address it. See, listen, I promise you,
Yeah,
these
I
are
got it
I'm
too.
being, but this is real things that are going on, and I promise you, the kid is suffering. The kid is suffering. So before you started, Rachel, I needed to throw that in. So if Teron was thinking, he could put that in his arsenal as well. Go ahead, Rachel.
Okay. So like I said earlier, I have some juniors and I have a student who has a single dad. And I actually called the parent to let him know that his son was failing.
Okay.
And the first thing he said to me was, why am I just hearing about this? I'm a
Bingo.
single dad.
Yes.
What am I supposed to do?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so this is an actual real situation. So
So this
my,
is,
huh?
and I want to pin it. I'm sorry. I'm going to interject because I want to pin what we talked about. So this is, Teron said, communicate better. I just want to put associate it. Go ahead, Rachel.
Okay. So in my response is like communicating, I let him know when I'm available for his son to come to tutorials. And me being a passionate teacher I come on Saturdays. I do Saturday tutorials, 9 to 12. But then I also went and conference with the student. Like, you're 17 years old, you are, like your father said, you are responsible for for your classwork. You know what to do wrong, you know what's the right thing to do when the assignments, you're always in class. So it's not an attendance issue. It's just a lack of you being motivated or choosing to do the work. So in communicating with the dad, communicating with the son, letting you know, it's your responsibility. And then on top of that, he is a 504 student as well.
Okay.
And so he gets services, so he can go to be pulled out and get help, one-on-one help,
I
with
got it.
tutorials while in school. So I'm like, it's also your responsibility to speak up and say, Miss, can I go and meet with so-and-so to finish this assignment? So it's just not communicating with the parent, especially in high school, communicating with the students, communicating with their caseload worker, the person who's over their caseload, and letting them know the issues that are going on with this student. Because the first thing they want to say is, you can't fail a SPED student. You got to
Right.
give them chances to make
Gotta
it
give them a
up or
chance.
get the work turned in. So,
Right.
communicating early enough, letting the parent know what's going on, communicating with the student, communicating with that pull-out teacher as well.
Mm.
And putting the responsibility on the student. You're
Yes.
well capable. And also
Yes.
this same student came back last week, he was all nice, shaven, haircut. I was like, oh, you got an interview? He's like, yeah. So he's already thinking about working and doing all this stuff. So I'm like, you got to focus on this first before you can start thinking about that. So I can see that him and his father have probably been talking about that too, him going to work. And his dad
Yeah.
works in the refinery.
His
So,
dad works. So it's it's no way I could even know this information.
yeah, no,
Now,
no.
what I want to say about that as well, we're talking about communicating better. We cannot leave the child out of the portion. And I like what you said about making the 17-year-old young man be responsible. First off, he's getting ready to go into the real world in another year or so, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing, parents, if you hear me, listen, I hope you don't get upset, but I'm going to say it anyway. Listen, they are responsible for all the things that they want to do. If it's a party he wants to go to, he knows the location, he knows the
Yeah.
time, he knows where, and he's figured out how he's going to get there. To me, that's communication, and that's being responsible for what I want to do. The new J's are dropping. Listen, I need to be there. I need to have $300. Like we give them excuses many times saying, well, they, not ready. No, that's not true. They show responsibility in the places where it means the most to them. But school, this is where get some tutoring. No, man, I want to hang out with my friends and I want to go to the game or I want to do that. That's not important. But we need to teach them, parents hearing me, we need to teach them responsibility across the world. I mean, across the board. And we need to let them know, wow, life is not a carnival cruise. Life is a battleship. That's why when the men are out at sea for so long, they have to bring them back and give them some reprieve. Get you some reprieve. That's why you have spring break. That's why you have Christmas break. That's why you have Thanksgiving break. That's why y'all get 49 days off when we can get them. I know I'm in my feelings about it. But anyway, that's what you get those for. But the rest of the school year, you're in the classroom. You're in there to learn. Life is about working. Life is not a party 24/7. So that was a great. Thank you, Rachel, for that.
I just
Teron,
want to
I want to go to Victoria. We want to go to channel 13 news at the top. Let's go, Victoria.
I just wanted to drop a pin there. The theme of what I'm hearing is ownership. And I'm coming from a K-5 point of view.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to say one exciting thing is that where I am working now in the district, we are starting in pre-K, in kindergarten, with grit, with perseverance, with goal setting, with personalized learning, which is a new trend that's kind of picking up steam in the education community. And when we go back to talking about the whole child, it's that social emotional, some of the things that maybe that single parent can't invest in as far as teaching my child grit, determination. They're seeing it by seeing you go out to work. But then, so as a responsive community of educators. I know this is going on in the community where their children whose dads or moms or whomever are work. How can I supplement that? Right.
Mm.
So in my school district, I am proud to say, and a lot of other school districts are doing this too, there has been a shift to a focus on character development, those internal skills that you're going to need to push past. And that's starting in kindergarten now, where kids have goal binders and they can tell you and articulate and own, I want to learn all 26 alphabets. Why do I want to learn that? Because I want to learn to read. And in order to learn to read, I have to learn my letters. We are teaching these kids to articulate that at 5. My son is 5. He also has ADHD. He is also on a 504. We are teaching him now. I am communicating with his teacher on a weekly basis, sometimes daily, depending on what's going on. I have that internal pull as a parent to see my son succeed, knowing the limitations that he has, but also knowing the potential. Looking at the limitation, looking at the potential, and seeing the growth. In kindergarten, they're learning that growth mindset. That's a buzzword in education, growth mindset. Our kids are facing some things that we never had to face. Our kids, are exposed to some things that if I was exposed to in 7th grade, I would be hiding under my bed. So, it's all about ownership. Who's owning it and teaching your kids really early to own it, because they are, at the end of the day, the common denominator. And we scaffold them, gradual release them to be able to do that. So yes, I like what you said about the child. Even though he's 18, we can go to kindergarten and start there to build that along the way.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. Listen, parents, even now, my kids, I don't care. Our oldest, she's 30. Whenever I talk to her, I'm talking to her about ownership. Why? Why we have to talk about ownership? Life is choice driven. I know things happen to us, but whatever happens, you taking ownership of the situation and the circumstances, you have to make a choice whether it's gonna take you or you're gonna take it. It's about ownership, right? Look, no more of this. I can't tell you what to do, and I'm not. Please hear me. Please hear my heart. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. We're presenting information. If it's for you, use it, take it, do whatever. But the days of us just throwing up our hands, say, I don't know what to do, that's not gonna work. I promise you. Listen, I'm going to enough funerals of young people that are under the age of 19. Now, am I saying kids are die because no, I'm not saying that. But I am saying some of them should still be here. And some of them chose another way out because the pressure of life was so much. They figure I'll just take my life and just get from under the pressure. Now, there's another podcast that we have to talk about that, but I'm telling you, this is a real reality. So now that parent is left with a lifelong weight, if you will, of what could I have done? Could I have done more? Should I have done more? Should I have done this? Right? Can I do this? And then I'm telling you, those teachers who care, like the ones you see on the screen, they carry the same weight because they're thinking, man, maybe I should have did more in the classroom. Maybe I should. Listen, it affects everybody. So I promise you, this is from a place of caring. So take ownership. Now, okay. I'm to run. I'm so anxious to hear your response because this is what I do in terms of my mentorship program. Like I work with high schools. I really like working with through the athletic program. It's no secret. If you have a young Black man in your house and he has any type of athletic ability, coaches, schools, they want him to play, they want him to be a part, and rightfully so, right, Teron? Yeah, right,
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
rightfully so. So I mean, if he has the goods, hey, I'm for him being in sports and all of those things. But Teron and I both know that many times the focus of it is all in the wrong place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And um, I played sports. I played in high school. I played in college. Okay, I'm for sports. Always will be, but not at the expense of the person of the kid and the education of the kid. So with the analogy, Coach Teron, because I know you are dealing with it and have dealt with it in different variations. I want you to be free, and I really want to go there because my heart really, I want to talk to some fathers who are and parent and mothers who are struggling through this, and there's so much pressure on the kid, there's so much pressure on the school. Um, how do we handle it? Let's go, Teron. Let's run. I want to run with this.
Okay, and so before we get into that sports specific analogy, it still relates, and I'm gonna close off with Victoria's comment, and I'm laughing because all I had to do is reach around here. I have a
Uh-oh.
shirt that I'm gonna wear on Monday. This is what I'm wearing
Okay.
on Monday. We're talking about
Incredible.
ownership, right? And you just said it's
Incredible.
all about the choices. So I don't know if you're looking at the pot, if you can see what I'm
Oh
holding
man.
up. My shirt, product of
I
my
love it.
in a crossed out environment.
Oh
And it's
man, I love it. See, where
that's
can
my
we get that?
outfit.
Where can we get that shirt, man?
And so our behavior coach had it last week, and
Okay.
I went ahead and said, I got to order this off of Amazon. We ordered off of Amazon. And
Okay,
so
people watching Amazon, we can get it from Amazon. I need a couple of those, man.
product of my choices.
I
You
love
know,
it.
we
I love it.
obviously environment is huge, and we know how that affects us. But at some
Mm.
point, taking ownership of our choices is huge. And so, you know, it just all circled around. I had to put that out there.
Oh, for sure,
For
definitely.
sure.
Thank you. Thank you for
Uh,
sharing that.
and so, but to go back to the topic at hand and what you presented to me, even
Yeah.
before this sports specific talk, um, I have some questions. I have some
Okay.
questions.
Yes, good.
And
Please.
so my question is, do you or do we as
Yeah.
parents
Yes.
and non-professionals of certain things, do we ever question a lawyer when it comes to how to do his job? Or do we
Oh my
question an
God.
engineer
My
on,
God.
trying to know what's going on under the hood of a car or working on a rocket or whatever the case may be? You know, when you have a professional, it's your job sometimes to ask and learn before we go off and thinking we can save uh, the world or know that situation. And that's one thing that teachers aren't blessed with having all the time. And so we deal with difficult parents, like you mentioned, with your 3 kids, and we're trying to put them in the best opportunity and best position to succeed, but we're not given that, I don't know if you want to call it grace or the same level of respect that we know what's best for the kid in our situation.
Mm.
And communication is big with that point. And so and that relates to the sports world too. And
Yes.
so what I'm getting at is, I would tell parents, fathers, mothers to trust the process and understand when the child is not in your care at home, it's my job to keep him or her safe. It's my job to give them ownership and get them to be able to problem solve and work their way out of a slump. If it's talking about a sports specific problem, you're second string, you're trying to get first string.
Right.
He has to develop somewhere A, B, and C. And I am trying to get him to that level. And he's not there yet. And
Right.
these are things that they can do to get to that level. But you have to trust me, first of all, and not poke fun or try to give your child the easy way out and let him be able to, let's say, play in a game when he's not ready, because we know sometimes the best blessings are when you've waited and you've grown to get to the level you can. But if you are throwing a fine when you're not ready for it and you fall, sometimes people and students, athletes can't come out of that funk, and sometimes they end up hating that sport or whatever because they're not thriving the way they should have or the way their parents expect them to. And so they just have to trust the process is what I'm getting at from the teacher standpoint and the coach standpoint.